So, welcome to the X Factor, a home pro sales podcast. This is a podcast about all things sales to help home improvement pros generate high quality leads and close more deals. I'm your host, Ari Greenbaum, and in this podcast, we're going to talk about different tactics, tips, and resources to help you grow your business while interviewing experts in the industry. But before that, let's just take care of a little housekeeping. You could rate us on Apple Podcasts, little purple icon, give us a 5-star rating, show some love, leave a review, let us know you're enjoying the podcast. It is appreciated. And for today, I am super excited. Let me just tell you a little background as well, but we're going to be talking about how developing and applying a process directly and positively impacts results when it comes to cultivating inquiry and leads and customers, bringing them to fruition of deals. But I am super excited and pumped to have the guest that I am honored to have today, Chris Michel. He's the founder of Coach Chris Consulting. Beyond that, I know personally that he is a true expert in home service sales and management. I personally learned quite a bit as a mentor to me when I first got into sales, especially in the HVAC world. And he's also author of a fantastic new book called The Red Chair Experience. So I want to introduce Chris to you and let him tell you a little about himself, his background, what he's coming from, because he does have a wealth of knowledge and understanding of what it takes to really make the sales machine go. So again, Chris, without further ado, man, introduce yourself. Let guys know who you are. I mean, I know I gave you a nice build up there, but obviously I love you quite a bit.
Well, thank you, Ari. And it's good to reconnect. I mean, we just reconnected probably a week or two ago. Yep. And what's interesting about, and we'll get into this, but the sales process, that was the thing that you and I worked on, right? You'd never been in HVAC sales and sales. And so the process that I took you through, right, was one that I developed over the years. And I continue to use something like that, right, when I coach other teams and things like that. So as you said, I'm a sales and business coach. I specifically work mostly with the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, kind of the home services industry. And it doesn't mean that I don't work outside of that. It just means that that's kind of my focus. I do work with other companies. I've worked with SaaS companies and construction companies, things of that nature too. So I get the opportunity to work with these teams to help them because they don't have typically a sales process. They don't have metrics or KPIs, key performance indicators that they can utilize to understand what's going on with their business and their sales. A lot of people, when they have these smaller businesses, they kind of fly by the seat of their pants, right? Because that's just what they know. And they say, hey, money's coming in, we're good, right? We don't have to worry about a close rate of 60 or 40% or even 20%, right? Hey, if we're burning leads, we're burning leads. Who cares? We're making money, right? It's not a big deal. But the thing is, and we talk in business a lot about how do we work smarter, not harder, right? And so we get to learn all those different things. But super excited to be here and have a conversation with you about these things because obviously it's something I am passionate about.
Yeah, no, that I know, and that's what attracted me, obviously, to join you. Back to those days when I first met you. And just give people a background. I've been in sales a long time, about 20 years at that point, but I've never in my life had been involved in people's homes. Everything was over the phone, and made plenty of big deals. But it's a whole different ball game when you're stepping into someone's castle and their most prized possession, and you're in their living room or kitchen table and having to try to consummate a deal. So the things that I know I learned from you are invaluable. I mean, they're things that I've relayed over to our clients here as we try to coach them to be successful in closing leads, converting jobs. So again, I owe you a whole lot of gratitude for what you taught me. If I'm not mistaken, I was pretty good at it, but it was all what you showed me, taking natural talent. But as you just said, applying a process, and that's really the thing. There's a process in sales, as far as I understand it, and I know we've talked about this. It's really a plug and play thing.
Yeah.
But again, if we can keep the focus here for our audience, which is home improvement, home services, getting inside people's homes, selling them those service and products, that's fantastic. Because I mean, again, that's the name of the game. I'm process driven in everything I do. So this is a topic that is near and dear to the heart. And I know how much it's done for my life and my success personally. So when we talk about process, what does that mean? I mean, it's a very general term, process. Okay, so we can have a process. Let me call my lead or inquiry that's coming in. Let me go ahead and, give them an estimate. But I mean, that's so vague, and there's so many more details that come into when you talk process. what that means. So can you take us through like more of a general, and maybe we get narrowed down to like some of the little pieces of the puzzle and attack those individually?
Yeah. So a lot of people, to your point, they don't understand what a process is or why they need a process. And yet we do processes every single day. Every day you get up, there's a process, right? You take the covers off, you step out of bed, maybe you do a daily assessment. Years ago, I used to assess myself when I'd wake up, I'd sit up on the edge of my bed, and then I'd go, okay, what hurts today? Now, thankfully, I've worked through that and I don't do that anymore. But that was a process that I did, right? It was a step-by-step way of doing things. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't deviate from that. It doesn't mean that you can't come off topic and step to the left instead of stepping to the right. But what it means is this is a proven and repeatable step-by-step way of doing things that will basically guarantee you success. Now, if you're doing it robotically, it's not going to work, right? And many of us, maybe in our morning routine, our process is we wake up, we go, we brush our teeth, we go get coffee, right? Whatever that is. Yeah. And it may be that we're not a morning person. And so we go through that kind of process without thinking about it. And the idea in sales is that there must be a process that you follow, because we say, oh, well, I've got to be, I've got to be fluid. I've got to go with this customer or that customer. I can tell you without hesitation, if you follow a process the same way every single time with very little kind of left or right movement, if you've proven it and you can repeat it, that will bring you so much more success than I've got to do it this way for this guy. I've got to do it this way for this guy. I've got to do it this way for this woman or this way for this lady. If you would stick with your process, you'd be amazed at how much success that will bring you. And when we deviate from that in sales is where we really get off course. So as salespeople, we get so caught up, right? And people that maybe aren't salespeople that are business owners, and they're going through this process that they think is working, right? Well, if I just say this, or if I know how to answer this, I know how to overcome this objection. If you follow a process, you'd be amazed at the success that brings. And so the step-by-step understanding of what works, of how you word things, it could be scripting. And again, a lot of salespeople are resistant to this, right?
Yes.
But what I've learned is if you script things and you understand the wording of it, you remove the buyer's resistance, you remove the opportunity for them to reject you, you remove the opportunity for objection or this instant no that we have kind of built into our system. If you do those things and you do it with fluidity, you can be very successful. And I think that's where people kind of miss the boat.
So if I could ask, you mentioned something there as far as, projectable to a degree, metrics and things like that. Because a lot of people think process is only for, the situation in hand. Let me get from point A to point B, get the result, get success, a deal, whatever that is. But from what you shared, there's a lot more to it. It really ties to a different topic as well that is not today's topic, about consistency. Because again, and I've been in sales a long time, and yourself, consistency is at the core of everything, and process is at the core of consistency. Because
Right.
how can you rinse repeat if you don't have something to rinse repeat? But that's where, like you're sharing, as a small business, to be able to project metrics when you're making projections for the year, you can plug and play if you know your process will result in out of every 10 appointments, 4 closed deals. Well, that's projectable metrics.
Right.
And then the rinse repeat, and that's the numbers game of it. So it's again, to me, I'm hearing it's a lot more than just the impact it's going to have on the situation, but it's on the
Yeah.
bigger picture as well, applying a process and like the rinse repeat style.
Yeah, exactly. And Ari, a lot of times what happens is we think that we have to be this gosh, almost this fluid person, right? So we've got the high D, the high I, the high S, the high C, right? What if you want to use the disc profile? You've got these different people, right, that we have to work with. And so I have to be this way with this person and this way with listen, if you come up with a proven and repeatable sales process, you eliminate the factors of the high D, the high I, the high S, and the high C. Don't get me wrong.
You
The
mentioned
high
that
S,
before, like
yep,
elimination of objections or elimination of concerns. How does a process impact that? Because that is help our, the
yeah.
people that are listening to understand. But it's a really important point.
Sure. So how that eliminates it is number one, you learn that in a process, if you learn how to build value on the front end, value to the customer, not to yourself, to the customer, right? Because value is in the eye of the beholder, as they, as I've kind of toyed with. I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. But it really does. The value is in the eye of the beholder. It's not about what I think is valuable, because no offense, what I think is valuable already doesn't, you may not like it. You'd be like, that's not valuable to me. That, who cares, right? That's not important to me. So when you understand your process, if you understand what you're doing, you, number one, you learn to eliminate objections or resistance on the front end. And you do it by not creating a commodity or not creating a situation where basically you're putting up a brick wall, but you're actually knocking down the brick wall. You're giving people the opportunity to buy. A good sales process helps people buy, not be sold. And that's probably the thing that we miss out on the most, right? And that's the thing that we lose or eliminate, is we think that we have to kind of maneuver this thing around. And what we're doing is we're building objections as we go along by doing that.
So it's just the word I'm putting, control. I mean, you really control things through a process,
Yeah.
control their thought, control what are
Well,
potentially
you
thoughts
gotta be
that come in
careful,
to a degree,
right. You want to be
and
careful
dictate
about that.
where it's headed.
Sure. You want to be careful about that, because it's not about, I'm not trying to control what people think or do. However, I'm trying to eliminate or block out those potential things that could come up, right? Because again, how do I eliminate objections? By bringing certain things up and addressing them on the beginning, right? So yeah, I'm controlling the scenario here, but I'm not trying to control what they think. All I'm trying to do is eliminate all these other objections or all these other things that are kind of sitting on the forefront of what could be their mind. And let's be honest, when people call for a second opinion, why are they calling you? Is it just to verify? Maybe it is. Maybe it's just to verify that, hey, the price is the price.
Sure.
But the reality is that person that was in their home before you didn't answer their questions, didn't listen to what they said, did not feel like they were heard. And quite frankly, the value didn't exceed the price. And so because of that, now you're in the home. Now you've got an opportunity to not allow that person to come back, or to not let anybody come behind you, right? Ari, you and I have been in situations where we're in a home, we're the second person in or the first person in, and we've done our job, we've done our due diligence, and the customer says, I want to work with you. And they say, well, I had two other people come in. And then I would jokingly say, and I meant this sometimes, but I'd be like, hey, do you want me to call them and let them know that they're not welcome to come in? Right? And
That's
it's fun to have
Cajones, as they say.
yeah,
like
it is fun to have those conversations, but the reality is this, right? We're providing a service, and if we can answer their questions, we can do business with them. They choose to buy from us. And that's what really it's all about, right? Sales is not about forcing your ideas and understanding on people. It's helping people understand your perspective, the value that you bring to the table, and your product or service, right? And so if you can do all those things, and again, you do this through process, once you figure out how to say things, wouldn't you want to repeat that? I mean, over and over and over again. And so,
the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's working, keep on
right.
going. Absolutely. But the key is developing a process that's going to work. So, I mean, that's the thing. And obviously we could attack all the little pieces and components of the life cycle of a potential customer becoming a customer. But maybe this conversation sounds like maybe steers more towards the interactions with the customer, the process there, because that's really the meat of it. Getting an appointment set and then getting the deal are important, but this is really at the heart of the matter. So can you take people through, what if someone's developing a process from scratch, or are there certain processes from others that they should just emulate and then plug and play their own tweaks and personality into? What do you recommend to people that are starting out that don't have a process, or have one that needs to be completely reinvented?
Yeah, well, obviously, Ari, the cheesy answer is get a sales coach.
Call Coach Chris. There you go.
No, but
hey,
no,
on cue. That was great.
Yeah, right. Well, but the reality is this, right? You can hire a professional. You can talk to somebody who knows and understands about processes and bring them in. The other thing, I mean, everything is readily available at your fingertips, right? So you can always search it.
2022, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always look this stuff up and say, what's a good sales process? Well, it's going to depend on your business. It's going to depend on your industry, right? I have a sales process for HVAC. I have a general sales process. Now, to your point, if I come to Ari with Ari's heating and air, Ari and I are going to have a conversation about what his principles, what his, what his culture is, right? What's important to him and what he wants to communicate to his customers through his people. And we're going to tweak that, if you will, the general HVAC process that I have so that it fits within your people and your culture. Now, I'm not going to set it up for the rogue guy, right, or the rogue woman that's out there kind of wild, wild west in it. And hey, they're my top person, but I'm going to. Sure. But here's the thing, Ari, and you know this, right? If you're at a company and you've got this top salesperson, what's really interesting is ask them this question: what's your go to your top salesperson, anybody listening, go to your top salesperson and say, what is your sales process? Ask them to write it down. And I guarantee you, most of them, like 70 or 80% of them, will not be able to tell you what the sales process that they have is. Now, they'll be able to say, oh, I do this, or I do this, or I all shucks this and all shucks that, right? And that works. It absolutely works. But they're not doing it consistently. So it's not really a process. They're quote unquote shucking and jiving, right? They're going back and forth, right? They're kind of in the boxing ring and they're trying to figure out, who are they fighting? Is it a southpaw? Sure. Is it a righty? What are they doing, right?
Like on the fly.
Yeah. And so they may be good thinkers on their feet, and that's fine. And I operated that way for a number of years. And then I learned, wait a minute, we've got to have a process. And the consistency that process brings really is the bread and butter of it, right? That's where you see the numbers go up. Instead of being 40% close rate, you become 50 or 55 or even 60%, right? You see a significant increase. Studies were done, and I've done webinars on this, but studies were done that those who follow a process are 70% more effective. 70%. Think about that.
Just by having a process.
Just by having a process, right? Now,
we preach that just in terms of outreach, to leads, et cetera. If you don't have a process of outreach and touch points, then you're fighting a losing battle.
Right.
These people are going to go elsewhere. So I mean, it's everywhere. I mean,
it becomes more of a challenge, right? If you don't have a process, it becomes more of a challenge. But yeah, having that stuff in place really kind of brings it in a little bit tighter. To your point, it becomes a little bit more predictable, right? Yeah. I can look at this and I can go, hey, we did 1.2 million last year. We want to increase our revenue. So if I bring in one more or two more salespeople and I bring in these support staff and I bring in these blah, 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 right? If I do these things, the metrics tells me I should double my business, right? Now, it becomes the outreach, it becomes the marketing, it becomes the right. How do you farm? Yeah, how do you do all these big picture things, right? But you have to set certain things in place, and once you get these proven and repeatable processes, and oh, by the way, it's not just sales. It could be your process for delivery. It could be your process for implementation. It could be your process for training, right? It could be
process everything. That's at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Well, other than meats, right? We'll stick with non-processed meat, but it's at the end of the day, process everything else.
Absolutely, right? It's figuring out how do you put a standard to all of these things, and then it becomes plug and play. Now I can take somebody off the street who doesn't know my business, doesn't know my industry, and I can say, hey.
That's the key right there. And that's where, I want to just really dive into a little bit deeper, because I'm sure that in people's minds, at the end of the day, as a small business owner, a guy just getting started, mom and pop shop or something of that nature, and they want to start growing, I mean, he can't just do it on his own. So he's going to have to scale and have to bring people in, salespeople, et cetera. Right. So when you're plugging people in, I would imagine that a lot of people have that concern. Well, I'm just going to give someone a script of some sort or a process and try to fit, maybe a square peg into a round hole, so to speak. Do you find a lot of resistance? You've been in the management side, coaching new people coming in. Do you find a lot of resistance? Because especially in sales, people come a lot with an ego, a bias. They got whatever baggage. Yes,
baggage. Yeah.
Yeah. You can say leave it at the door all you want, but at the end of the day, they're a seasoned person. They think they know what's best. So when you're coming into an environment, how successful are people to plug into it? And what can people that are in a managerial or a leadership role do to encourage that in a positive way, to really get people bought into it and embracing a process? And that's what, when I was with you back in the day, I mean, I embraced the process you taught me and applied it and took my own talent, and then it was great, but you got me motivated to do that. And that's what, how do you do that as a small business owner or a
Sure.
leader of a sales team that's growing? Those are
Well,
challenges.
yeah, you're right. So, and Ari, you know this, there were two people hired at about the same time, you and this one other person. You were process driven, the other person was not. And the other person kind of went more with their feelings and well, maybe this works, maybe it won't. And they were not as successful as you because they weren't process driven. They didn't understand this whole idea of working a process, right? And we tried to teach them this process and they just weren't picking it up. And so they left our company and went to work for somebody else, and they were marginally successful with somebody else because of the culture and what they did. And I saw him months later at another meeting, so we had a little bit of a conversation. So what I find is that yes, plug and play is a great way to do it. So right now the labor field, if you will, is really, really short. And it's hard to find good people that, number one, and people need to know this, you hire for culture, you can train all the other pieces. And this is one of those things, right? So I came from outside of the HVAC industry back in 2004. I was looked at as an anomaly, right? Oh, there's somebody outside of the industry. I don't know if they're going to work. The second year I was with the company, I became the top salesperson. Why? Because I understood about taking a process and working through it and driving those things that worked. And so I continued to work it. Now I worked harder, I worked later, I worked weekend, right? I did different things too to also cultivate that. But those of us that adhered to the process, we were taught a process, and when we adhered to it, man, the sales was there. We were successful. We had close rates of 60+%, right? We were increasing our average ticket, right? We were doing the things that needed and should have been done by this plug and play type of atmosphere. So can you bring in somebody from the outside? Number one, yes. Number two, you should be able to bring somebody, plug them into your system, show them the ropes, show them the process, give them this understanding. And if they meet your criteria for culture, right? Because you don't want to bring in this wild, wild west person. You want to bring in someone that worked with your company. If they don't work with your company, they're not going to work. Doesn't matter what you give them. They may be successful for a time or here or there, but the reality is they're not going to be a success with you and your company. And that's the struggle.
So do you find that it's super important to do the old leadership by example style, especially if you're like a sole proprietor and you're starting to build a team, or as a manager, if you have some top guys, using them as the leadership and pointing to their example? Is that more of the way to get people bought in? As far as the new person coming into this process, the proof's in the pudding, so to speak. Take a look at what he's doing. Go sit with him on a sit right now, and I guarantee you're going to see a difference.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like an epiphany moment of, this works. Is that proof's in the pudding? Is that really what it takes sometimes with someone coming from the outside to really buy in 100% to this process is rock solid? It's going to get me to the promised land, so to speak.
Sure. And I don't know if you remember, we were going through a transition shortly after you and I met. There was a transition in our company. Yep. And the new ownership came in and they had a process, right? I don't know if you remember
different
that.
process.
Very different process, right?
And I know a lot of people left as a result of that process because they didn't feel they could fit into it compared to their styles.
Yeah, exactly. And so what happened was there was a culture shift, right? And so the culture that shifted, they brought in people that fit their culture, and they quickly, easily adapted to the process that was there. And so you and I made adjustments, and we did the best that we could with what we had, but it really didn't fit into the culture that we wanted to be a part of, or that we were
attracted to.
That we wanted, that we wanted to be a part of, right? And
sure.
So that's what changed. And to your point, right, a number of those people did change, and they moved on, and that was okay because they wanted to fit in with a certain level of comfort and culture that they were used to and that they want to be a part of. So yeah, can you bring in people from the outside? Can you bring people from some other place and show them your process and say, here's what our process is? And then back to your point, yes, you should absolutely have somebody. I was that person. That's why I do the things I do now. And I learned that I really enjoyed and loved coaching people because I love to see them succeed. I love to watch them grow and change and to be successful and quite frankly, to be more successful than me. I mean, I was successful. I had a good time. I made a good living. But I want people to be more successful than me. Why? It has no reflection on me. It has more to
That's
do
a
with
true real manager's goal.
yeah,
Not everyone feels that way, but they should if they have the right
yeah.
mentality.
Well, and that's
Absolutely.
the difference between a leader and a manager, right? A leader wants you to succeed. They're looking for their replacement. They say, "Hey, Ari, I want to bring you onto the company, and oh, by the way, I think you could be the next leader of the team, right?" So I'm grooming and changing and helping you to understand, right, what this looks like going forward, because I want you to step into my position, and I work my way out of my position. Maybe I move up, maybe I move on to something different, right? But that should be the goal of every leader, is that you're as a business owner. Yes, it'd be great if you could bring people on and say, "Here, watch me do my process." But let's be honest, a lot of business owners today, they're self-managing sales and they shouldn't be. And I know that's kind of my
Yeah, it's
tagline,
not their background; it's the
but
reality.
it's
Yeah.
exactly, it's not their background. And so I get the opportunity, and there's other people like me, by the way, that do this fractional sales management type of thing, right? So we get the opportunity to give you the expertise, the 20 plus years of sales experience, and we're going to show you processes, and we're going to show you, ways of bringing these people on, and we can help you with that
And from
for
what it sounds like, also to identify what is the culture, so you could bring the
exactly,
people in to meet that culture there. Just out of
absolutely,
curiosity, I know we both had the same experience back in the day with the mentioned together.
sure,
Just out of curiosity, I know you were in touch with people a lot more than I was, and you tuned in a lot more than I am to that world. How long after did they completely change over and then get back to being successful in terms of sales? Because I mean, they had to turn over the team for the most part because of the culture. So just to give people an idea, I mean, that was a big team. I mean, we weren't talking just two or three guys. I mean, there was a dozen guys there at least,
mhm,
if not more, and a significant size company doing tens of millions of revenue, not just a new company here.
sure.
So how quick did they turn that around and taking the same concept? They put a process in, maybe it didn't speak to everybody, but to get the people in that have the culture that fit that kind of a process and that style, do you know how long it took them to do that? Because that would be really enlightening to people as well.
Yeah.
This can happen fast. It's not
Well,
just a long term
didn't
thing.
take long. Yeah, it didn't take long to turn the Titanic. I mean, it really didn't. And so, to your point, they were there were. I was leading the team when you came on, and I think we had 8 to 12 people.
Yep.
And so it was somewhere in that 8 to 12 range. And I want to say they nearly doubled it within probably a year or a year and a half. So it didn't take long for them
That's
to.
awesome.
I was one of the last people of the quote unquote originals that were
Mhm.
there to end up leaving. And that was a
So
year
you witnessed the
after.
whole shift and change
Oh,
of the
yeah, yeah,
team
yeah.
and the growth of the team as well by doing exactly what you're saying, whether again, the same process that speaks to you, speaks to me, speaks to others
Right.
aside, they put a process in place, hired based on culture,
Hmm.
fitting the process, and then projectable and kept on scaling
Oh,
based on
yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
that's the model that we're really talking about here. And that's
Yeah.
for a large company, but easily from what we're talking about can be done at the small business level,
Absolutely.
owner operator level that wants to scale a little bit, not even just go berserk, but add two or
Right.
three guys and increase his his business slightly. So
Right.
these are very, very applicable to the kind of audience, especially that I
Oh,
know
absolutely.
is
Yeah.
here and tuning into these. So yeah, outside of just obviously the general concept of process,
Mhm.
and I know we don't have all, we can maybe do other episodes in the future together and talk about the little nuances of each piece of it. But, if there was a piece of that process, like, or maybe an outline, if you could say what you do, without giving the secret sauce and the magic formula, but is there a basic outline of a process that people could just take away from and start developing based on that structure?
Sure. I mean, obviously, it starts with receiving the phone call. What do you do with that phone call? What do you tell the customer? What's the scripting that you're having with that client? What questions are you asking? What's your understanding of why they're coming to you and why are they calling you? Where did they come from? Was it a billboard? Was it an ad that they saw? Was it a Google click? Right? Where are you getting this person from? Number two, then the process is the questions you're asking, and then how do you filter them through your system? Who needs to be the person going there? Well, that becomes do you understand your people, right? Do you understand I work better with older individuals, the
Trying to
40
match
plus.
personalities to a degree,
Yeah.
even as
So I
much as
work better,
possible.
right? I work better with a 40 plus crowd, right? So put me in front of that kind of a homeowner, whereas there were others that worked better with the 20, 30 somethings, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay too, right? So you match up that, if you can, match up that person to the individual that would work best with them. And then as you work through that process, it then becomes, depending on what you're presenting, right? Understanding, asking questions when you go out, you do the presentation, you have to understand what they're looking for, what do
Like a
they
truly
want.
needs assessment, discovery, really
Absolutely. It
understand their
becomes,
needs.
yep, understanding all of that stuff, and then gather yourself, gather your information, know exactly what you're going to present. And then when you make your presentation, it becomes, and to your point, there's so many things to talk about here,
Yes.
but the presentation itself,
Open a can of worms here.
yeah, thanks. Making me look like the crazy one. So, no, but the reality is there's psychology that says you need to give a number of options, right? And those number of options is 7 plus or minus 2. So you give somewhere between 5 and 9 options, and those options are progressive, right? They're not, well, you can have A, but this is A1 and this is A2 and this is A3. It's got to be A, B, C, D, right? There's the good, better, best kind of mentality that you have to walk people through and say, hey, we can do this, but we can do this, or we can add this. And a lot of times people leave those pieces out. But anyways, so then walking through the process, continuing, so you give them that option, you allow them to buy, and then when they purchase, what's your process look like from there? So now
That's that delivery process you were talking
yeah,
about, the post
whose
sale.
hands does it go into? And am I delivering a product or am I delivering a service? And who needs to be involved with that? Is an email to one person or 6 people, right? And do I need to take pictures? Do I need to take measurements? Do I need to, understand the scope of work, right? What all is involved? And all of those things come into play. And then, and this is where people kind of miss out, after we do a cool down period before we leave, do a cool down period to make sure that our emotions, because when you're making purchases of these, these elevated tens of thousands of dollars, there needs to be an emotional cool down period. So we take our time. Hey, Ari, tell me, why did you choose this particular thing? Why did you choose this system? Why did you choose this choice? Right? Sell me.
And I'd be willing to bet you 99 out of 100 people, maybe even 999 out of 1,000, do not do an exit interview.
No.
Like you're talking the cool down.
Yeah, and they don't understand why that, they're going back to the office with this wonderful sale, and they can't figure out why in the world a customer called before they got back to the office.
Buyer's remorse kicked in fast, yes.
Right. Because they didn't do the emotional cool down, right? Yeah. And again, psychologically speaking, when we make a major purchase like this, most of us go through this dopamine shot, right? That says, ooh, this is really cool. I want to make, and I'm spending a lot of money, and we get this rush of adrenaline and dopamine that happens. And as a result, if we don't bring them down, if we don't inject some serotonin, if we don't inject some, and I'm not talking about physically injecting people here, okay? But
all listeners, do not walk around with a syringe.
Please do not do this, right? Do not carry the EpiPen. No, but when we inject things that are more serotonin-like, when we help people to understand, man, you made a great choice. That's a good decision you made. Tell me more about it. What did you like about it? Yeah. Right? And reaffirming in their mind that they made a good choice, and helping them see what the choice was that they made. And again, when they sell it back to you,
I'm smiling because you're giving gems right now, Chris.
Yeah.
These are like details that people should be salivating for right now. Because as I said, I don't know too many people that do this, and I know how important it is. I know that it was something that you taught me to do as well on the exit, the cool down, and bring them back to a calm place. Not in the ether anymore.
Right, and it's super important. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're both on this emotional high, right? The salesperson and the customer, right? And so we're all on this emotional high, and we're going, oh man, this is really cool. If we don't come down and if they don't come down, what happens? Literally, as soon as you leave, they're calling 6 other companies, and they're calling your company to say, I'm going to wait. I need to get 6 more, whatever. Again, you didn't meet all their needs. You didn't talk them down off the ledge, right? And that's so important, especially when you're talking major purchases. Think about this, okay? Anybody who's listening, think about this. When was the last time you went and bought a car? Or let's make it even simpler, a television. Now, a television nowadays, you can spend $500. It's not a big deal. But emotionally, it's a big deal because that 50-inch or that 60-inch or that 80-inch television that you're trying to purchase, right, that's going to be sitting there for a number of years, you want to make sure that you made the right choice, that you made the right decision. Does it meet all your needs? Does it do what you want it to do? How many times have you gone to the store thinking, hey, I'm going to buy this size TV for this amount of money, and you walked out of there with a bigger size television for a little bit more money, right?
Every time.
And did you regret it, right? Are you emotionally walking home going, oh crap, what did I do, right? The wife's going to kill me, the husband's going to kill me, right?
Sure.
There's this decision, oh my gosh, the chairman of the board is going to have a fit, right? I just spent $1 million on this software. So again, do we bring people through that cool down process? And then
so reduces that second guessing and the buyer's remorse,
absolutely,
whatever term you want to put on it, significantly.
Well, and here's how you
like
do it.
The concrete or the glue of the deal, so to speak.
Here's the gem. You want a piece of gold. Here's a piece of gold for you. How do you do a cool down period? And this is super, super important. Give them the next steps. Tell them what the next steps are. Hey, I'm going to take this television off this, I'm going to pull this box out and we're going to carry it out to your car for you. We're going to gently put it in your car. And then, whatever, or we're going to deliver this and they're going to mount it on the wall for you. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. They're going to take pictures, make sure we did everything right. We're going to show you how to work it, right? We walk them through the next steps. What does that do? That solidifies in your mind, hey, this was a good purchase. And ooh, look what they're doing that's a wow factor, right? That's an aha. Oh, wait a minute, this is more than I expected.
Focus
right?
on what they're receiving, not what they've just given. Yeah.
Correct. And so now we take them through the next couple of steps and we show them what we're going to do. And we say, hey, the next steps are, I'm going to put you in touch with Ari. I'm going to put you in touch with Lorraine, and she's going to walk you through these steps. She's going to ask for this information. I'm going to give her most of the information already, but she may ask for a few other things that I didn't know or didn't get. And so we're going to need to, have that information in that call. And I'm going to set that Zoom meeting up. I'm going to set that face-to-face, whatever that is, right? And then as we do that, again, this calmness kind of settles in, right? And that cool down period, that emotional, okay, I did make a good choice, a good decision. And then after we do that, and this is kind of one of those things that we leave out, is write them a thank you note, a handwritten thank you note.
I'll tell you, we've taken the personalized message thing, because I know you did impart that to me, and I've seen it from others as well. And we've brought that here, as an example, and we have a little bit different of a business here, obviously from in-home sales, but going the extra mile, handwritten holiday cards every year to our clients, which speaks volumes. It just separates you from the rest, and it just solidifies the relationship. And the feedback I've gotten from them, it's astounding. And just from a simple card with a simple message, it's amazing what it does.
And I have a company that I work with that I send a gift. I'm not going to give it away, but if you work with me, there's a gift that I like to send to my customers, just a little simple thank you, to say thank you for doing business with me. And it's amazing the response that I get from just that simple act, right? And I don't do it for that. I truly am thankful for them, and I get to support this other business too, by the way. And I bring that in. But
100%.
So much of that stuff is the little things that we don't do, right? And when we don't do that, we miss out, and we don't provide the extra value. We don't provide that. It's called a wow factor, right? Some people term it as a wow factor, but we don't provide that extra wow. Hey, that's amazing. You did that, and that's what gets people talking.
That's as I said, a gem. That's good. The goods, as we say. Like if I'm going to summarize here, we've covered a lot of stuff, but just to summarize here, people are obviously, as we said, process everything. That's the most important thing, is have a process for everything, every piece of it, even what you said, how you qualify them, and the questions you ask, even on the appointment set, not just when you're in person in their home, but everything leading up to it, having processes for the presentation, the sales process itself, of course, and then the gem we just talked about, incorporating a cool down into that process. Can't leave that out, because that is awesome. But then the post-sale process, it's all process driven. And one of the critical takeaways that really spoke to me, at least from what you're sharing, and hopefully as others as well, is this key piece of information that it's not just plug and play anyone into it. because that might be the thought. Okay, well, I could take, this quarterback, plug him into a West Coast system. If he's not a West Coast quarterback, teach him how to play. He has talent, he can throw the ball, but it's not the same thing. It's the culture that is the key, and it's not the playbook. And that's really what I'm gathering. And that's again, another gem here to help people to understand when they are scaling, when they are looking for people to plug into something, to make sure they are the most likely to succeed and thrive in that environment. That's and you can't guarantee it, as we know. It's never a sure thing in sales. That's the reality of it. But you're setting yourself up for much more likely success. And then the other piece of it, as we said, what this does for a business, for the mindset, when you can project out numbers, and it's just that confidence and comfortability that it creates. I'm going into a year and I know this is what I'm going to do. And if I increase X, I will do Y more. Yeah. And it becomes a formula at that point. So yeah, again, this has been invaluable. I hinted at it that we might need to have you come back, to be a guest again, because there's so much more we could dive into here. And again, there's obviously only a limited amount of time for this episode, sure. But did want to make sure you did let people know about the book as well, because again, I know it's brand new and just getting out there, and it's a bit of a different thing. It's not sales. This is, from what I'm understanding, much more geared toward daily motivation, just feeling good and positive, and the things that I know are critical to people's success. Just you got to give the quick shameless plug. Absolutely. It's not so shameless because I told you to do it, but
well, I appreciate that. So it's called the Red Chair Experience, and this is the book. It's you can find it on, if you like digital, you go get it on Amazon or on Barnes and Noble, right? You can buy it anywhere. Literally, you can buy it on Walmart if you really want to. But if you want a signed copy, or here in the United States, if you want a signed copy, go to theredchairexperience.com. It is a daily inspiration. There are some sales things in there. There's some sales morsels in there, if you will. But it's a daily inspiration for success in life and business. And it really is designed to help people kind of get that to your point. It could be motivation for the morning. It could be that inspiration that you're looking for. That I read this and 3 other books almost every single morning.
Just the mindset, right?
Yeah, just to get the head in the right space. And I spend time meditating or praying and really focusing on my day ahead of time so that I can have a successful day, right? It doesn't always work, and it doesn't always, it's not always capable of doing it, right? I've got 7 o'clock meetings, and so it's hard, right? How do you do it?
We could plan all we want, but at the end of the day, it doesn't always work that way, but it does help when you have a plan.
The reality is we all need something that we can go to every single day. And the Red Chair Experience is a place for you to go every single day, to spend time for you to focus. And that we all need that, every single one of us.
Without a doubt. So that's a process in itself. We talk about everything. The process getting up in the morning. So this could be become a part of someone's process to give them the inspiration, focus, the mentality to be successful in the day, and do it every day. Rinse, repeat on that as well. Just like everything. I really do appreciate you joining us and sharing such awesome insights and valuable nuggets of knowledge. And I want to thank our listeners for listening to the X Factor Home Pro Sales podcast. I hope that it brings you value. I'm confident that this episode absolutely will, and helps you take your sales game to the next level. Be sure to subscribe so you can catch that next episode. Your action items as a listener are, wherever you're listening to this right now, hit the subscribe button so that way you can catch next episode. We don't want you missing out. You can follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at ConnexPros. If you didn't catch that, check our description for all of our social media links. If you have questions, shoot us an email. You can send that to learnmore@connexpros.com. There should be a graphic there to give you the exact email address as well. And thanks for tuning in, and here's to your success.